What up, Raffalitos? Welcome back to my channel. We are on St. Road, near to the office of the president. That is the presidential ministry, the ministry of the presidency. That's the new name now in Guyana. That's the Ministry of Agriculture. We just passed the intersection with Regent Street or Regent Road, but that's the Ministry of Agriculture here on St. Road. St. Road. Thought I'd bring you back to this neighborhood, see some of the changes since the last time we were here. Alright, we're looking across at the Amici. That's Amici restaurant over on Church Street, across from border, cricket ground. And that's looking back towards, that's north towards the entrance of the Botanical Gardens. There's some traffic lights there now, but those lights don't seem to be working. What I wanted to show you at this intersection coming up in this neck of the woods is the completed remake of the St. Road Homestretch Avenue intersection. Okay, so that's the office of the president. You can see the crest on the building. That crest is also on the vehicles. You can see the crest on the gate as well. All right, so that's the crest on the gate. And that crest is also on the official vehicle of the president. On the other side, that is the Castellani House, which has been converted into a museum, an art museum. But that's the house in which I think President Burnham resided. So there's an official residence of the president on Main Street, but this block of buildings is actually owned by the government of Guyana. So meaning all the way from Chandrapal Drive to halfway down Homestretch Avenue is the property of the government of Guyana. Morning. So this is the intersection we want to look at. So last time we were here, they hadn't completed this intersection. See, that's Castellani House, which is now an art gallery. The National Art Gallery is here at Castellani House, looking into the sun, so you might not get a sharp enough picture, but that's Castellani House and National Art Gallery. And I wanted to show you this completed intersection. So now this bridge, what used to be a tiny wooden bridge, has been converted into a concrete structure that can carry cars. So build cars that are turning east onto Homestretch Avenue can use this lane. Also wanted to show you there in the distance, that's Tacuba Lodge, the concrete building without unpainted concrete building. That's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs building, also referred to as Tacuba Lodge, the building, named the building, Tacuba Lodge. At one point it was one of the tallest buildings in Georgetown. So all of these buildings are government buildings. And the point I'm going to make in a minute is that some people still don't understand why Georgetown is not properly maintained. It's because all these government buildings don't pay their taxes. They owe the government of Guyana billions of dollars in taxes because of a political rivalry between the mayor and city council, which is usually supported by the opposition voters, that is, voters for the coalition government and the PNC and the APNU and the AFC are concentrated in Georgetown. And because they don't normally vote for the PPP, as punishment, the government, which is now run by the PPP, refuses to pay the taxes that would normally be required for all these government buildings. So that is another government building. That is the Ministry of Health Care. Ministry of Health is over there. That's a new building by the Ministry of Health. And like I just showed you, Ministry of Agriculture is just up the street. Ministry of Health is on Brick Dam, and the Ministry of the Presidency is 2 blocks of buildings starting over there and continuing here. So all along Homestretch Avenue, halfway up Homestretch Avenue and the gardens, those are all buildings belonging to the Ministry of the Presidency. So when you count it up, really, there's a lot of property that is being either rented or owned by the government of Guyana in Georgetown. It is the largest, that is, the government of Guyana is the largest holder of property in Georgetown. So when the government doesn't pay property taxes or does not contribute to the funding of the city, that is the city council, it shows in the poor maintenance, in garbage pickup, a lack of garbage pickup, in lack of manicured lawns, in lack of city maintenance and all the utilities, city utilities. And so people think that the city of Georgetown is dirty because the mayor and city council is doing a bad job. That's looking at the Ministry of the Presidency, looking north. That's another view of Tacuba Lodge. Right, that's Tacuba Lodge, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And if I go around all of the properties that are either owned or leased or rented by the government of Guyana in Georgetown, it could amount to about 10% of the property. That's the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Public Health. That's the new building that was built. I think it's now completed, and they're adding, I think, new buildings into the complex. But this whole complex is the Ministry of Public Health. All right, this new building was completed, I think, within the last year or last 2 years, and certainly in this 5-year period. They started constructing it in the previous administration, and it's now being completed, or has been completed, in the current administration. So the point is that if you want to talk about the poor maintenance in Georgetown, the issue is the lack of funding for the city. It's not the mayor and city council that is responsible for the lack of funding, but it is the government of Guyana, because the government of Guyana owns the largest share of property in the city, and through some political dispute and spite refuses to remit the subvention, the amount of money that is necessary to maintain the city. which is the capital city and which is the seat of government in Guyana. The problem is that a lot of people are blind to this situation and are deliberately misleading, basically lying about why Georgetown is such a dirty city. It's a dirty city because the government of Guyana refuses to pay this mayor and city council the amount of money it's owed to keep the city, to maintain the city. And that dispute comes out from time to time when you see the army, the government using the army, the Guyana Defense Force, in cleanup campaigns around the city. When you see the government doing some of the construction works around the city itself. For example, all of the beautification work on the at Kingston was done by the office of the First Lady. Alright, so there's all those beautification drives in Kingston, on the Kingston seawall, the Kingston Promenade, was not being done by the mayor and city council because the government did not remit the money to the city engineers department to do any of that work, to do the design work or any of the construction work. Government simply chose to do that with government, that is federal government, if you're interested in the distinction. So this is the federal government taking over the role of the city government, and it's doing so because of politics. So that's a discussion here this morning, explaining why Georgetown is in a state of, constant state of mess. That is, garbage everywhere, garbage on the streets and so on. It was even worse in the period before 2015, because in 2015, most of the ministers of the government did not live in Georgetown. They built their own community on the East Coast called Pradoville. So because the ministers of the government didn't live in Georgetown, they didn't care about the state of the city. And that meant that there was garbage piled up on the curbsides of most streets. I remember in 2014, 2013, 2015, before the 2015 election, how that's the top of the Best Western Hotel. I'm going to talk about that in the next video. Yes, but I remember in 2013 when I arrived in Guyana, back before the coalition government won, there were piles of garbage everywhere. There was a high suicide rate all over Guyana. The city was dirty and smelly. You could smell the garbage a block away from piles of garbage all around the city. That changed in 2015 or 2016 when the coalition government took over and cleaned up the city. That was their priority. If you go back to videos of that time, and I have some of those videos on my channel, I think, well, not on this channel, but on other channels, you'll find videos of that time. The city is really dirty, it's in malaise and so on. That is what is the problem with Georgetown. The problem is that it is a political football in the current election cycle or political cycle. That's looking east on Homestretch Avenue. We're heading east because I want to take a follow-up visit at the Royal International Hotel on Mandela Avenue, and we're going to walk over there this morning. But this is what I'm showing you here at the intersection with Homestretch Avenue and Vincentian Road. So that's why the city is dirty, and that's some of the politics that keeps the city in turmoil, because of a conflict between the current PPP-led government and the opposition-led city council in Georgetown. So that's a little bit of information on Georgetown politics. Over here, this is the Durban Park. Everybody on the PPP side, whenever I talk about infrastructure, faults with infrastructure that's being built in Guyana, You see in the comments, people want to know, what about Durban Park? What about Durban Park? Well, what about Durban Park? This is Durban Park. It's still here. It has been neglected. Like I said in previous videos, it could have been converted into a stadium. You know, they could have torn down these wooden structures, which nobody liked in the first place. It was not even a political issue. It was the fact that it was reminiscent of the 1960s and 1970s, 1980s Guyana. It was an old conception of what Guyana was in the Burnham era, and nobody liked that period of time. So this is one of the facilities built by the previous government that nobody liked. Nobody liked what it represented. It represented a period of socialism in Guyana that nobody liked, where you were forced to assemble to support the government and all that stuff, where they would bus people in from all around the country. Same stuff they do in Russia and China and so on. To support government activities, they would bus in people to these rallies. And so this stadium represented that sort of thing. Now what is happening? Homeless people are living in this stadium. Right, so you have basically people are taking up residence in these pavilions, and it's been left to fall apart. But this is prime real estate in the city, and like I said, this could have been a stadium, a golf course, a indoor arena, could be an ice rink, or it could be, you know, a multi-sport event venue for tennis and soccer and baseball and all that stuff, cricket, all that, an indoor venue with a closed roof. It could have been like the, Air Canada Centre in Toronto, or like any one of the major stadiums in the US, closed indoor stadium, like the National Tennis Center in New York, Flushing Meadows. So this is the problem. The problem is, instead of telling me, oh, look at Durban Park, what did the PNC and whoever did this, why doesn't the current government take this prime land and build a stadium, or even build a venue for, you know, trade, build a symbol for the nation, a World Trade Center, the famous 50-story building that the current vice president is talking about. So that's what's happening, guys. That's what's happening in this neck of the woods. These, I said, are all government buildings, and part of the problem is the fact that these buildings do not pay taxes. And that means this property, which is owned by the government of Guyana, does not pay its fair share of property taxes to maintain the city. That's what's up, guys. That's a little explanation of why Georgetown is in the state of underfunding that it has. It is a political issue, and it's mainly artificial. It's created by political conflict between the government of Guyana and the city government of Georgetown. Want to see more content like this? Click like and subscribe. Share this video with friends and family around the world. Let people know what's happening in the fastest growing economy in the world, Guyana. And let me know what you think about turning this prime real estate here at Durban Park into a national treasure stadium. You know, they could turn it into Dubai Mall. They could turn this into a really upscale venue. Tell me what you think. Instead, what we have is homeless people living in the pavilions. here in Georgetown. Share this video with friends and family around the world. Let people know what's happening in the fastest growing country in the world, Guyana. Later!